Hello and welcome to Good Things, the podcast where we talk about stuff that we like. There's enough negativity in the world, so yeah, podcast about positive stuff. What we're going to do on this week's show, it's going back to the 90s for our top 10 movies from the 90s. Horror movies from the 90s. It's spooky season, Halloween. Welcome to the show. Continuing on from last week's 80s, we'll be going down for the rest of October, like 90s this week, 2000s, 2010s, and we won't have time for 2020s. And as well, we're not even halfway through 2020s. Yeah, you can always squeeze those in. So yeah, we might throw in some other mentions, because there's quite a lot of good movies coming out in the 2020s. I think we're in another golden age of horror. And it's the thing, it's a lot of people, I think, depending on what, it's the same as comics or music or whatever kind of era you grow up in. You normally say, oh, that was the best time for, like, oh, the 90s was the best time for metal, or, you know. So a lot of people say the 80s was the best time for horror movies, and generally I'm in agreement with it, but going down to go through the list for the 1990s, I really struggled with this one. As in, not struggled to find 10 good movies, as in to kind of like narrow it down to 10 movies. Right. So there's some of it on the list where it's going to be cheating with having a few of them thrown in.
Right, or honourable mentions maybe.
Yeah, so I suppose getting it started, we'll start with you. What's your number 10 then, Laura?
I suppose we'll start off with something which it's not necessarily a favourite of mine, but I kind of thought, well, I kind of marked that sort of beginning of that whole genre of film. So it's I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I think that kick-started that whole thing again, whereas, like, you know, college kids or high school
Scream
kids
would have, surely.
Well, no, I mean along the lines of it, like, it would have spawned the likes of, say, Jeepers Creepers and all those kind of, you know, kids.
Jeepers Creepers in the 90s?
No, that's what I'm saying. This is fucking listen to me, for God's sake. It kind of started that whole thing of high school kids getting caught up with some sort of a horrible, horrendous, like, stalker monster. Like we had, I suppose, it's kind of it's not quite Freddy and it's not quite Jason, but it's kind of along those lines with a slightly more modern twist, I suppose. So obviously it's a gang of kids and they're out partying and they're terrible insofar as they manage to knock
they kill someone. They have a hit and run. They're terrible insofar as
but that's what I mean. It's not set
murder a man.
It's not set up as in, like, these are innocent kids. These are kids who did something fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And they all decide to keep quiet. Well, some of them get bullied into keeping quiet about it because obviously they don't want to go to prison or lose their license or lose their future and all the rest.
Can you remember, what did they actually kill the man, or was that the man that was doing it? Because I think in the sequel it was like his son, or kind of like he's an next door neighbour or something like that. It was like,
yeah. You see, that's the thing. I'm kind of like, who knows? It's like, who can man? Was he a ghost? Was it him? I can't actually even remember.
Well, he definitely wasn't a ghost. It was definitely a man.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of kick-started that whole thing of, like, there are consequences to your actions and you should pay dearly for it. Not that I'm saying that anybody in Jeepers Creepers, like, you know, deserved what they got, but it's that whole thing of the high school kids getting
So
kind of
you're saying
down.
the director, who turned out to be a child pornographer,
What?
didn't deserve what happened to?
What director?
Yeah, the director of Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2. He got either done for child porn or, like, actual touching up kids.
Oh, really? Well, you want to be sure of your facts there before you go.
No, I'm fucking absolutely sure. Yeah,
Okay,
sure, that was the thing. He was blacklisted, like, from things.
Ooh,
and that's
Jeepers
why, like,
Creepers,
the Jeepers Creepers 3. That's why never looked at. Like, most people were like fucking boycotting the shit out of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, it kind of let's leave Jeepers Creepers to one side there and just pin that aside.
I know. I was just trying to do a Norm MacDonald on it and kind of pin you as being a paedophile sympathiser.
Okay, right, yeah, absolutely not. But let's pin that horror to one side. It's this whole thing I thought of, like, going back to, like, high school kids that are not innocent. They're doing something terrible, and it just spawns this whole thing of, like, will they get the retribution? And then it's like, oh my god, that's a terrible way they're dying. So it just in my head it all connects up to that, and it's almost like the Final Destination films or something like that, where it's just gore for gore's sake.
Yeah, it was. a rip off of Scream though, or trying to be a rip off of Scream, but they did something different. I think there was that.
I see. That's why it's at
Urban
number
Legends,
10, and it's not higher up the list, which spoiler Scream
so I'm
is.
just really surprised at because it's never really seen as being good by anyone, apart from you, obviously, and a few other people.
I don't. As I said, I don't think it's necessarily good. I think it's like a cultural touchstone because, like, it is a phrase that enters the lexicon. It's like, oh, I know what you did last summer, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
you know,
so it did get into.
You know, it got into sort of, I suppose, the pop cultural zeitgeist and all the rest.
It's just I can barely. Maybe you should go back watching it again because, well, yeah, I suppose it's the thing with. What was the other film that you were going to put on it after we went back watching? Pacific Heights?
The last time I saw that I was an actual kid and I have not seen it since.
No one should ever look at it. Actually,
it's not even a horror.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's hilariously bad.
See, I just remember as a kid going, oh, Michael Keaton was in that, and I think he was kind of a creep, and I remember it being an awful lot more violent than it was, and then we watched it and it was like, oh,
it was Matthew Modine.
It was basically more like just a sort of a
it was just an asshole that moved in, like they got into.
It was more about the court case, trying to get it back out, and I was kind of like, how did I think this is a horror?
He was like a shark, and he just moved it, like he weaseled his way into the apartment.
Basically squatted, didn't pay rent, and refused to be evicted.
Shit all over the place. It been torn everything apart and like put cockroaches in there, and then robbed his credit card and moved on.
Yeah. I know it was awful looking back, but when I was a kid, as I said, I watched it once, and as an adult I had this hazy memory of like, yeah, there was a Michael Keaton film that I thought he was a super creep.
Well, I did now, like I never saw it, but I remember when we were kids, like people going to see it in the cinema.
Like Dead Calm, do you remember that film as well? That fucking creepy.
That might be as good now if you go back looking at it.
That's the thing, you see, I'm kind of half afraid to, because I'll probably go back and kind of go, oh.
I think you can't kind of like put Billy Zane into kind of like Billy Zane before he became Billy Zane and looking at him as Billy Zane now, you know, kind of like in a serious role, you kind of go, oh fucking hell.
I suppose when he harpoons a dog to a door, that's fairly horrific.
Oh, I forgot about that bit actually. Yeah, but so that's your number 10 thing. Anyway.
Yeah. Back to that then. Yeah, so I know what you did last summer, mainly because of the influence and the cultural zeitgeistiness of it all. Really,
Yeah, let's go back watch it actually, because I think there's a new one coming out, or maybe there was a TV show of it or something that there a while ago. I think I'm fairly sure there was a TV show actually.
Last summer, I know what you did last.
Well, it probably was the best of the Scream rip-offs. I think with it.
Anyway. Yes,
my number 10 is a cheat. It was originally just going to be Interview with the Vampire, but I couldn't pick between Interview with the Vampire, Blade, John Carpenter's Vampires, and Dusk Till Dawn.
Well, I have Dusk Till Dawn on my list. So
it's a 4 for 1. No, we'll talk about Dusk Till Dawn then when we get to it on your list. But I just thought Interview with the Vampire.
See, I knew you would have a load of Dracula type stuff on yours, so I was like, I'll even introduce all those. But so
Interview with the Vampire, I remember seeing it in the cinema. It was a big deal in the 90s. It was a very big deal for people that might. It's probably not after aging very well.
Possibly not, no, especially with Kirsten Dunst.
No, I don't mean kind of like that, but I just mean as like the effects and things in it. Maybe the effects are alright, but.
Oh, it's just it catapulted Anne Rice right back into the sort of the spotlight. I mean, I remember fucking everyone was reading Anne Rice novels at that stage. Yeah,
trying to see what happened. It got, like there was reprints of Interview with the Vampire after it. I think it was, I wasn't 13 when it came out, but I remember I was probably about 12 or 13. One of my friends in secondary school, which would be like high school in Ireland, gave me it like when I went into it and I read Interview with the Vampire. It was alright. It was when I read Lestat years later that I was like, oh my god, this is like really good. Queen of the Damned, great. The first 3 books are fantastic.
Queen of the Damned film. Ooh. Great soundtrack, but
great soundtrack and great cast actually in it. People that look like the characters, but unfortunately none of them can act. Was the thing. Even like they got Armand perfect, because like in Interview with the Vampire they got Antonio Banderas to play Armand in it. He's brilliant. He's really, really good in it. But Armand in the books is kind of like a child or teenager. where they have him
Kinda
like
like a
that
fey
in
young
Queen
man
of the
kind of
Damned,
thing,
yeah. And he's red haired, and it's kind of I can't remember, he was from Mesopotamia or something like that, but he's one of the ancient kind of vampires. But Interview with the Vampire, really, really good. And sure, Kirsten Dunst, like you were saying, won an Oscar for it. The big controversy at the time was Tom Cruise playing Lestat, and I thought he was brilliant as Lestat, and I thought he was really, really good.
Did the job well. And I think as well, I suppose Brad Pitt was riding high at that stage as well. He was like
he was kind of on the rise. He was kind of coming up
So
with
I
it.
think
And then
Aaron
Brad Pitt can't act for shit, and like he couldn't act for shit in this either. But he played Louis well, because Louis is
just
kind of boring.
That's it. He just kind of mopes around the place, looking all sad and pale.
Yeah.
So he kind of did that fairly handy.
That must look at the new TV show, because the new TV show is meant to be very good, and I think they're in the second season, possibly after finishing the second season now, and it's I think in the second season they only get into the Theatre des Vampires.
Ooh, can pronounce that again.
Theatre des Vampires. They only get into that.
Theatre des Vampires.
Yeah, the Vampires Theatre, boy. They only get into that in season 2, so you know it'd be quite good to see it. Although I thought like the pacing was done really good in Interview with the Vampire. Like it was Neil Jordan, who's if he hasn't won Oscars, he should have won Oscars. He's like highly respected, you know. So for him to do what would have been considered a genre,
didn't he do what's it called, In the Name of the Father? Was that
and the Crying Game and all that. So you know, like he
very
did.
worthy films,
Yeah, he did it in Company of Wolves though as well. So that would have been. Did he do Gothic? I can't remember if he did Gothic, which is about like Shelley and Byron and all those. Like, that would have been what inspired Mary Shelley
All
to
those
write
lads.
Frankenstein. Yeah.
All the boys.
But the other one, Blade, like we talked about Blade extensively on a previous podcast episode. Blade, like, I mean, it's Blade, but I wasn't sure. It's not really horror, it's a superhero movie now, so it's kind of in that genre. John Carpenter's Vampires, much maligned, I think. A lot of people shit on it. It is bad. It's like...
So what's it on
but
your
people
list?
are just hamming it up. But it's bad, good, bad. What's his name? James Wood is just totally hamming it up. There's one of the Baldwin brothers in it who's just like, he can't act. What's her? I don't know the actress's name, but she was in like Twin Peaks. She was Laura
right.
Palmer.
Yeah.
And the vampire is there's such brilliant lines in it as like, he will be unstoppable unless we stop him.
And that's actually something you quote quite often. Actually,
and it's a shame because it's actually some of the bits in it. The vampires are scary in it. It's shot kind of well. The music is cheesy John Carpenter stuff. It's like it's a fun movie. It's just bad at the same time, but it's good. I think at Dust Till Dawn as well.
Well, sure, we'll talk about that now because it was kind of coming up, sort of down. I don't have necessarily ranked in order of preference.
So we'll say you're number 9 then.
Yeah, go on.
Dust Till Dawn. Yeah.
So obviously,
what's your number 9 then, Laura?
Yeah, my number 9 actually is you might have heard of it, a little vampire flick called From Dusk Till Dawn. Obviously, I would have been, I think, as every younger person was back in the day, a Quentin Tarantino fan, and it was like, you know, sort of when you hear it's like, oh, you're doing something to do with vampires, and like George Clooney at the time was a huge fucking
He's
star.
coming off ER, wasn't he? Was he in the film? I think this might have been one of the first films that he was in.
Well, I think it was, I'll have to get the sort of the flow, the timeline right, but I don't know, had he done Oh Brother Horata or something?
No, that was much later.
He was in a sort of a string of like unusual films for him, where he was, as I said, coming off like, you know, he was like Dr. Handsome or whatever the fuck he was on ER.
He played the dog in South Park the movie.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But and it was just, and of course Salma Hayek as well. Which,
Salma Hayek would have been, I think maybe she was in Desperado before, and that's where Rodriguez would have. But like, I think she was in a bunch of stuff in like
and of course
Latin
every
America.
teenage boy was going to go and see From Dusk Till Dawn because
For Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, exactly, and his feet.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, it kind of starts off as sort of your typical kind of low key, kind of like what appears to be a Quentin Tarantino film, where, you know, sort of it's.
And that's for people who don't know, it was written and directed by Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. Well, it was written by Quentin Tarantino and directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification, Mister. But it kind of starts off all low key, and they're sort of, you know, they're looking for a place to hole up as such. Yeah,
they're two brothers that are they're horrible criminals, and it's straight out of a Tarantino thing where they could easily be out of Pulp Fiction. And
they're like, they just stumble into what they think is just like this sort of a middle of nowhere sort of sleazy joint, pub kind of thing, and they're like, "Gosh, we'll hold up here for a little while." And it turns out that they have somehow...
The titty twister.
Yes, stumbled into this horrendous vampire's nest where like everything just turns into like fucking...
It is. It just... And like me, Harvey Keitel is in it as well. Juliette Lewis is the daughter in it.
Yeah.
And well, there's like Danny Trejo. I think was some of the first kind of thing where Danny Trejo was
started
really
making his
introduced.
big...
But there's a load of people in it. Fucking Tom Savini is in it as Sex Machine.
Yeah. And it goes from being sort of, as I said, your typical kind of like... I won't say low-key Tarantino film, but it had more of a Reservoir Dogsy kind of a feel, and then all of a sudden it turned into like this absolute Technicolor full-blown bloodfest in the sort of this vampire attack.
It was banned in Ireland as well for a fair few years. The first time I saw we saw it on pirated on a video. It was a really shitty copy of it, but first time I got to see a proper version of it was when Channel 4 showed it.
Which is
and there was trouble over it because people in Ireland were saying, "Oh, we need to block Channel 4," and it was like, we're not meant to be getting Channel 4 anyway. Everyone in Ireland was getting it illegally because like Ireland was so close to England.
Well, it's not even illegally. It's like it was just terrestrial broadcasting. It was just we happened to be picking up the signal.
Yeah,
we weren't paying English TV license.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Yeah. But like it was just like it. So people were saying, "Oh, the Irish government have to stop this being aired," and it's like, how can you? Yeah, just don't look at it.
Yeah,
stupid bastards.
Leave us who enjoy it just have like decent access to film.
Then there was a whole thing about a year or 2 years later where loads of films that were banned were declassified, like The Exorcist.
Well, there was a different censor, I think, basically came in and they kind of went, "Oh my gosh, what is this?"
Yeah, and Clockwork Orange and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, there's a fucking ton of them. Yeah, The Life of Brian. Yeah, it was banned for a long time. Yeah. But yeah, it's a brilliant film, especially the change in it, because there was a lot of people that didn't know. Like I've heard stories about people in cinemas, that were just walked out when the vampire showed up, that were just like, "What the fuck? This isn't Pulp Fiction."
This is not the film I came to see. Yeah.
But like it was really fucking massive. Like I mean, it wasn't a calling card for the two of them because the two of them were.
They were big at that stage. Yeah.
But for the two of them to do a horror movie like that, like there's been sequels which haven't been great, but like I mean. It's the action in this it's like a fucking zombie movie because they're holed up inside the bar trying to not let the vampires in and try and deal with it, and people keep getting bitten and infected and turn into vampires
themselves, and people keep having to kill like their fathers and their daughters and all that, you know. It's like
it's got that emotional kind of impact to it, even though it's got that kind of cool Quentin Tarantino vibe.
And everyone is actually it's one film I would say I think everyone is cast perfectly. Everyone just fits into that. It's like this sweaty, dirty, grimy, bloody sort of like down at heel universe, and like everyone just fits into it so perfectly. Like you really feel for the father and his daughter, and you know Quentin Tarantino is perfectly pitched as an absolute creep in this,
he's as a potential
predator type person.
Yes.
Not a predator as in like, you know, sort of
anytime. But as in a sex predator. But yeah, I think it's quintessential 90s stuff. A lot of people forget about when they talk about horror movies in the 90s, and as well it's all practical effects. This is the thing, people shit on movies, they go on about movies from the 80s going, "Oh well, it's all practical effects." A lot of movies in the 90s were practical effects as well.
They couldn't it just wasn't there. Actually,
it was the start of some CGI, and like even at the time it was bad. Like no one looked at Lawnmower Man and went, "That was great" at the time.
That's what I was just going to say. I have it on my list as an honourable mention because it was one of the first films to try and make use of CGI. And it was just absolutely appalling. Yeah. It was like that Dire Straits video.
But it's a great movie. That's the thing. Because the movie is so good.
Behind it, you kind of enjoy it, and then it goes into like what is supposed to be like this virtual reality, and it genuinely looks like the videos for like Dire Straits fucking Money for Nothing, like, you know, where it's just like it's not even like Mario level 8-bit, 16-bit graphics. It's horrendous.
Like I mean, I remember seeing that in the cinema. I think I saw it twice in the cinema.
It's unsettling actually. How bad the CGI.
But when it does, you kind of go, "The fuck." This is not good. Like even at the time it wasn't good. And like I mean the best bit was the monkey at the start with the gun.
You'll always root for a monkey, won't you? Especially a monkey with a gun.
But it's like, oh god, I can't think of the name. That was it. One of the Bridges played.
Was a Bridge.
Yeah.
Jeff Lloyd.
I don't know. But he was fantastic in it because it was I don't think I really saw it before then because I was so young anyway as well, that it was this character that you really liked and was sympathetic and he was really nice, and then he turned like pure evil. And you were kind of like, oh, you kind of hope that there'd be somewhere down, and he doesn't. There's not one point in it where he kind of goes, oh, my God. He just gets worse and worse with it.
But yes, that was one of my honourable mentions. I thought I'd throw it out there as you were talking about CGI.
Yeah, well, my number 9, which it's actually kind of similar to Dusk Till Dawn. It's Demon Knight. Do you remember Demon Knight?
Very vaguely.
It's William Sadler was in it, who was also in the remake of Salem's Lot, which I was saying to, who was like the bad guy. He was in
Bill and Ted.
Well, no, he was dead in Bill and Ted.
Yes.
Die Hard 2. He was the bad guy.
Yeah, sorry.
But Demon Knight, it's about a group of people. Well, this guy who's the Demon Knight, who has basically like a hip flask with Jesus' blood in it, and he goes around fighting demons. And it's kind of like the Dark Tower, where there's this man after him trying to get the blood from him, because if he can get rid of all the blood, or get him to get rid of all the blood, the demons can take over. Yeah. So they're holed up in the house. It's a Tales from the Crypt presents. Billy Zane is in it as the demon. Wow. That's after him. He's fucking brilliant in it. This is when he goes full Billy Zane. He's very funny in it, but he's very creepy in it at the same time. And the effects are done really well. They're all practical effects again. Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, is in it.
Oh, yeah.
She's very, very good in it as well. I know a lot of people, they're not big fans of her for some reason. I don't mind her, and that I've seen her, and she was in The Matrix. I thought she was fine.
Yeah. I think people maybe just don't like her because of the whole
her
reality.
As a person, but I'm on about as an actress.
Yes.
I don't care about their. Well, I do care about people's person. Obviously, not going to be going like, hey, I can kind of push aside what Gary Glitter did. I just want to keep. Yeah. But it's not as if she's like on that league. But it's.
Why does your mind instantly go to Gary Glitter when you compare her with someone?
This was when you grew up in the 80s. Gary Glitter, you're and Jimmy Savile, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Fucking Rolf Harris.
Yeah. Jeez, was there actually any children's
It's just a list. And then when we went into the 90s with P. Diddy.
We're just grown up surrounded by it. Yeah, it's kind of like dodging paedophiles.
Yeah, is there fucking anyone? Yeah. And then you kind of go, yeah, well, there's loads of people that aren't, that are famous and aren't bad people. Yeah, Demon Knight. So it's kind of like that John Carpenter thing where they're stuck in the house. It's a halfway house. And it's a bit like Maximum Overdrive as well, but with demons instead of cars.
Indeed.
It's just done very, very well. It's like there's lots of kung fu in it. There's lots of action, and it's people. Billy Zane kind of tempts people to try and get him to let him in. So you have people trying to get out, and that they're selfish people that are like, oh, look, he seems fine to me, and they'll open the door and they kill the demons and get in. And so it's just really, really fun. Cheesy B movie. Soundtrack is excellent as well. I think this is the thing in the 90s. The 80s, excellent soundtracks and things, but the 90s fucking really leaned into heavy metal soundtracks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nearly every fucking, I think because coming out of the 80s you had stuff like Shocker and Trick or Treat and Lost Boys, and their soundtracks were predominantly metal or heavy rock.
Yeah.
And in the 90s then I think
you started getting that proper link between heavy metal and
I think people caught, like, the directors and studios were like, look, it's fucking metal fans like the horror movies, and they're the ones that are more than likely going to buy the soundtracks, and they're going to do this and do that.
So stick all the metal you can in.
So like Demon Knight has Filters, Hey Man, Nice Shot on it. Oh God, the Pantera's on it. There's a ton of fucking things on it. I'd put it up there with the Crow soundtrack. It's really good. 1,000 Homo Sapiens is on it as well, which was a side project with Trent Reznor and I think maybe your man from fucking oh God, why can't I think of the Dark Side of the Spoon?
What?
See, this is it. If you're new to the show, my brain is gone. Fucking kind of like basically it's rotting away at an incredible rate, but I can't think of it.
Let's just skip over this because you're not going to be
Jorgensen.
like oh, okay, right, yeah. Ministry,
yes.
Yeah. You see, it's like talking to Skippy with you at times. I kind of have to try and figure out what way you're going. I eventually get there because somehow I kind of tend to know what you're talking about, but you have to like give me at least a direction in which to go, because normally you just look at me and go, what am I thinking? And I'm like, I don't fucking
But Demon Knight, I think you can put it on no matter what mood you're in. It's just good fun. It'll put you in a good mood after looking at it. There's no kind of, you're not going to be doing any examination of it, or it's just a fun action horror movie with Billy Zane in it. You can't go wrong.
Billy Zane, yeah.
Exactly. So what would be your number 8 then, Laura?
Well, I think they're actually matching up with your own list. I have Event Horizon on mine.
Yeah, I mean, why did you pick Event Horizon?
Well, I suppose total contrast to Demon Knight. You don't come away from this all happy dappy and like cheerful or anything like that.
I did.
It's pretty horrific and pretty. I suppose it starts asking some weighty questions, I suppose, for a horror movie as well, doesn't it?
Like what?
Well, it's just the whole sort of like, knowing things will drive you insane kind of thing, and looking, sort of.
Well, it's Paul W. Anderson directed it, who ended up doing the Resident Evil franchise. That's what he's probably best known for now, because he's after doing like a million fucking Resident Evil movies. Married to Mila Jovovich, so like the two of them have been having great fun for the last fucking 20 years making
high kicking their way through cinema. Yeah.
But like before that, he, like, Event Horizon saw him being kind of like considered as being a really, really good director and a really good horror director.
I think Event Horizon was a bit divisive, though. I thought a lot of people kind of went, "Whoa, that's very, very overly fucking gory for the."
Oh yeah, but horror fans are like, "This is good." Like he's seen as being a good director. Like, but Resident Evil, a lot of people are like, "This guy can't direct," or "Why is he making these shit movies?" Where it's like getting it out, like I quite like some of the Resident Evil movies.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I couldn't tell one apart from the other, being honest.
Welcome to my world. That's my entire experience with cinema. It's like I can't tell part 1 from part 6.
But Event Horizon, it's serious horror. He said himself it's meant to be like a haunted house in space, but it's more kind of Lovecraftian.
It is, because the haunted house is nearly you.
Yeah, well, it's like about a spaceship that goes missing. A guy's after coming up with. They came up with it. I think it's something that they can jump through black holes with, and it disappears, and then it shows up. So our crew go out to try and recover the ship and see if anyone's still alive. And when they get there, then they realise, when they're looking at like the old videotapes and stuff, that something horrific happened to them, which is basically they went to hell through the black hole, and then they brought hell back with him. Sam Neill is fucking fantastic in it. Because he starts off as being a sympathetic character. It shows at the start his wife killed herself, so his whole thing is, I think it kind of plays up a bit on the whole Catholic thing that if you kill yourself you go to hell. So it's like playing on his fear that like, his wife could be in hell, and that kind of nearly tempts him to get to where he wants to go to hell with it, but they never really say it. It's just kind of implied, and it's just the whole, when they show it got cut out of the movie, so they only showed in like small bits. There's this bit where they find a videotape and they get look at the old crew, where the old crew are tearing their eyes out and fucking ripping each other in half and loads of mad shit. But that was deemed to be way too gory for the cinema, so they cut it into bits and pieces. So you only get flash of. There's been rumours for fucking 20 odd years that they're going to do a director's cut of at some stage, but apparently all the footage is lost. But they keep saying that, and yet footage pops up for different films. But I think Event Horizon is excellent movie. Really, really good movie, and very 90s. It has I think he was coming off the back of Mortal Kombat.
Oh right,
that, and Mortal Kombat was like really well, and people were like, and for the time as well, it was without the best fucking computer game movie. I think it's probably
still one of the better ones. Mario Brothers is good?
No. But yeah, Event Horizon. Well worth the number 8 spot. So skipping that thing, what would be your number 7?
So skipping on to that, so from that would have been, I think we're going to hit Devil's Advocate. Al Pacino.
Devil's Advocate, that's my number 6 actually as well.
Yeah, geez, we're having a bit of a crossover. We should have consulted before this one.
Oh no, we don't need to. Because then we don't need to have 2 separate lists.
I know it is. But Devil's Advocate, because I enjoyed the whole thing of Al Pacino absolutely chewing through the scene, just being over the top table, and like some of the special effects in it are fairly cool. Sort of the wall where it starts, all the bodies are intertwining and like screaming and stuff.
It looks like it's CGI. It's not.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the making of the film, and they were showing how they did that. And it was just people, like you know, when you kind of
face out through a bit of material or whatever, But and of course then like it's the ending is just great, like you know, sort of won't ruin stuff or anything like that. But that's another, I suppose, again, Brad Pitt, who you don't think of as being a horror actor, shows up in this as well.
Brad Pitt isn't in this.
Who am I thinking of? Wait now, sorry.
Keanu Reeves.
Sorry, yes. It's
Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron.
There we go. Sorry,
they've been in a fair few movies with each other actually, and they know each other quite well. And apparently, they get on really, really well in real life. They're kind of friends. With it.
Yes,
but
I don't know how I had that brain for.
You're thinking of The Devil's Own. Remember where Brad Pitt played someone in the IRA and he couldn't do the Irish accent?
Am I thinking of that? Jesus Christ, that'll show my stupid brain is a word. But yes, Devil's Advocate. Yeah, I mean, like Keanu Reeves is actually very good.
He's
in this
brilliant
as well.
in it. He's really likeable.
Yeah, everyone slags off his acting abilities and all the rest, but in this one, it is very, very sorry. You feel what he's feeling going through.
You can see his descent into and temptation, I suppose.
Exactly.
And
is he going to jump the whole way in, kind of thing? Is he going to be bought out by Satan? Is he going to renounce everything that he
But
held
you
before?
don't know. This is the whole thing with it.
Yeah, you
don't know. You know, but you don't really. It's never like
explicitly
said that like Al Pacino is the devil. There's nothing to kind of show. It's just a lot of bad stuff happens. So it's kind of like The Omen, I think, where it's like Kramer used to say, "Oh, Damien, he's just a rambunctious kind of like a rascal." Yeah. Whereas it is kind of like that. You're just like, is he just? There's something about it, is it? You don't know, and then like when it is revealed that he's the devil, you kind of go, "Oh yeah," and then like that he's. Keanu Reeves is like the Antichrist. Yeah. Essentially.
That's it, yeah. That was probably
story.
a bit of it, not necessarily a twist, but that was sort of maybe not necessarily sort of where most people would have seen it going as well.
But it's what you feel so sorry for Charlize Theron in it. Like, I mean, it's...
Like, she's just a loving wife that's just somehow just gets shat on from a height all over, like, you know, because of bad choices made by other people.
But they do, the kind of twists in it are done very good. And like the way the whole film is linked with like I've seen it a load of times. I had it on video when it came out, because I think it was one of, not maybe the first, but it was one of the first to do like the special edition VHS releases. And I think I know I saw it in the cinema as well. But it's just a really, really good.
Is my memory
movie
serving me correct? But did we close out with the Rolling Stones then as well for the closing credits?
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Fade to Black was like a lot of things.
That's how I was just wondering. Was I getting it?
And like Sympathy for the Devil, but I think it was Guns N' Roses. Sympathy for the Devil was used in Interview with the Vampire. But yeah, it's Devil's Advocate, amazing movie.
Yeah, like I mean, that's the thing. Like Al Pacino is fantastic, and pretty much even if it's something ridiculous, just his over the top acting, it's just it's just a pleasure.
But it's probably more a 70s horror movie, and because I don't know how people feel looking at it nowadays. It'd be like an A24 horror movie, I think. Not much fucking happens in the whole movie. And it's like accidents or people kind of
corporate greed as well is kind of a big part of it.
And it kind of hints at people being a bit sleazy and involved in
it's kind of like
weird sex stuff, but it never shows any of it. It's like just implied. Kind of
weird 80s yuppie fucking coke fueled. You know, sort of like.
But you know, it's just the way certain people touch each other or look at each other. You kind of go, there's something going on there with
it. Squirmy about that.
So that's your number 7, and my number 6. My number 7 would be, I cheated again here because I had to get Clive Barker in somewhere. I could have said Hellraiser 3. Most people hate Hellraiser 3. I love Hellraiser 3. I think it's a dumb movie, and people are, you don't want to know Pinhead's backstory, and it's like, but it elaborates on the whole mythology, and it kind of shows that, like, look, Pinhead was a human once before, and he became this. I know it's people that say the same thing about, like, you're better off not knowing things. Fucking Halloween, you know Michael Myers' backstory from the fucking start. It doesn't make it any less scary or anything like that. You know Jason's backstory, and like, you know Freddy. It doesn't ruin it.
Yeah, it just makes it more sinister. Can I just say before you go on there, one I've just had a sneak peek of your cheating list. Leave one of them off because that will feature somewhere in my.
All right. Yes.
And you can guess which one it would be.
Yes. Well, anyway, like I was saying, Hellraiser 3 I think is great. It wasn't actually going to be on the list at all, but since I'm just doing the cheating kind of thing, Nightbreed as well, but Nightbreed is more fantasy, so I kind of wanted to throw it in.
That's how I was going at it, but then I was like, I don't know if I should add it.
And I think I've looked at there's like a director's cut of it, and then there's like, I think is it fucking Cabal cut or something like that, which is even longer. And you kind of go, the original cut, like it's better as a 90-minute movie instead of a 2.5 hour
need the whole
movie. It's meant to be, for years I've been talking about doing a TV series of it because it's a fantastic world. The comics, if you can find, I'd imagine the only way you're going to find the comics is by fucking pirating them. The old comics, they're really good. They elaborate on the story more. It's about like a bunch of monsters that are kind of nice. They're normal. That's not like they go out causing trouble or drinking on the streets and getting into fights. And like humans are the bad guys in it. So it's that whole trope. And as well, I threw Lord of Illusions, which has George Costanza's boss Kruger from the last season of Seinfeld in it as a demon, I suppose, a cult leader demon. It's awful. Scott Bakula is in it as well, or Bakula. Is in it as well. It's just it's a terrible movie, but it is so bad it's good. It's really, really, really funny. So kind of like really what should be on. There's a film I'm leaving out on the list that Laura's going to be talking about that's on her list. So I suppose it's really going to be Nightbreed and Hellraiser 3 on it. Jedzia Dax is in Hellraiser 3.
Yes. I love the way you're kind of like, for my number 6 I shall have 5 films.
Yes. But a
little bit cheatery then.
And Motorhead did the soundtrack
how about
to it as well.
See, it's always good, like if you have a film where a band like that does the soundtrack, like Max Revolver,
but they didn't really do it. It's just Lemmy covered Ozzy Osbourne's song Hellraiser and they did a video where it was like Pinhead looking at him playing it and then kind of nods at him at the end. Where it's just like, what?
Because that was it. I mean, like the Queen of the Damned soundtrack was originally meant to be Jonathan Davis doing a load of songs, wasn't it? And he couldn't get released from his record label, so a load of other bands stepped in and did all the recordings. That ended up being great. Yeah,
it was a brilliant soundtrack. But so I suppose on to number 6 for you. My number 6, Devil's Advocate, which we talked about, and your number 6 is?
I'm going to put Scream in there at number 6 because again it was a good film. I did enjoy it, and I think I may even have been in college at the time as a film student, so I would have doubly enjoyed it. But again, it's just sort of I think Scream probably revitalised the horror scene. Oh,
it 90s. Did, yeah. It was kind of revitalised the slasher movie, definitely.
Yeah, because everyone was kind of like poo-poo and horror, and they're like, so 80s. Yeah. And then Scream came along and kind of knowingly, fucking tongue-in-cheek, kind of like took aim for all the horror shows.
With the whole meta thing. Yeah. And like before Scream, he was after doing A New Nightmare, which I was going to include on the 80s one, where he did the whole thing where it's about like if it was like the real life actors that they were in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, that was like Freddy Krueger was like a demon, but he was like a dream. It's like really meta. And then I think he probably got inspired and then did Scream, which is very meta kind of slasher movie. We're winking at the audience.
Yeah, and where like characters in it, even they're kind of like they're explaining why they shouldn't do something because like, oh my god, this is what happens in a horror.
And that was never before in most horror movies. Sometimes people wouldn't say zombie, people wouldn't say vampire,
Dracula.
Things they were like, you have to act like no one knows anything about it. Where it's like, fucking come on, everyone's seen a horror movie or everyone's
seen, so at least these are all kind of nerdy students who are into that kind of stuff, and they're like, I've seen a horror film, I know what happens next. Don't go wandering around the fucking house on your own kind of a thing. It's just all the usual
but the characters were all good. I can't think of the guy who played the main kind of student in that was like with the rules of horror. Then you had like
Matthew Lillard was in it.
Matthew Lillard was brilliant. Matthew Lillard should be in more things. He's fucking a great actor.
Yeah.
And like he's more than capable of doing serious roles, but for some reason he got thrown into this.
But I mean, like that was the opening scene of Scream. Like that's still talked about as like, oh my god, what a way to open it, because like you have this big name star, you've got Drew Barrymore, and it starts off with your whole sort of your usual trope of like, a girl home alone, babysitting or whatever, and like creepy killer stalking around. and she gets horrendously killed, like properly horrendously killed in the first, before it even flashes to
everyone
the
would have
credits.
seen the trailers, would have seen Drew Barrymore on like, I mean, she was the big name.
Yeah, so everyone's kind of, she's going to be the final girl. And it's like, nope, first kill, straight away.
So it was from the start, it was just saying, look, we're fucking...
Throwing out the rules.
Yeah, that's it.
We refer back to the rules,
but really they weren't, because like they did it with Psycho with Janet Leigh.
Yeah.
Like no one thought it. Like Janet Leigh was a big star. She was the biggest star in it, and then she gets fucking. She's the one that's in the shower scene.
Yeah.
With it, so it's like I think this established Wes Craven as being like the master of horror. Like he was for years, and like I mean, fucking people that were into horror, you know, was Wes Craven fucking up on the top. But this, I think, just blew him up. Like Scream, such a phenomenon at the time, and it really did revive horror, because like horror was just a lot of straight to video stuff, and this brought it back to the cinema.
Yeah.
For people, so Hollywood fucking loved it.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, Scream made money, right? Everyone make horror films quickly. So then we got a slew of horror films. Scary movie as well.
But they were scary movies. Your favourite movie of all time.
Yeah.
But it's like there was a lot of bringing teenagers back into it and kind of going away. It was all slasher movies. There was a lot of slasher movies saying in the end.
Yeah.
With it, which. I don't know, I'm not really a big fan of slasher movies. I like slasher movies, but just I think they have to be
your particular
over
favourite subgenre?
No, they have to be over the top, I think. Right, so that's your number 5. My number 5 would be Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Wait, now, is that my number 6?
No, your number 6 was the Devil's Advocate.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh no, my number 6 was Devil's Advocate.
Yes. So my number 6, I think, is Scream.
Yes, so your number 6 is Scream. So my number 5 thing is Dracula. Dracula.
Which one?
Francis Ford Coppola's,
I know, yes.
Like, shot brilliantly. Gary Oldman is fantastic as Dracula in it. Winona Ryder is great. Another Keanu Reeves movie where people are like, he can't act.
Yes.
And alright.
I think he's alright.
He does the job.
Because I mean, Harker is sort of, he's a bit of a, he's not meant to be like I know he's meant to be the main character.
Yeah, he's meant to be a bit of a
really,
dweeb,
but he's a fucking wet blanket.
He's just an introduction to like
that's it. It's the reader's voice, I suppose, really is.
But I think like Coppola did a lot of fucking fancy stuff, and it was all shot on film. All practical effects. Like how they turned him into a bunch of rats, I'll never know. But as well, it's
just one of his talents that he has on his acting CV. Can turn into a bunch of rats on command.
But it brought emotion to Dracula. Like, I mean, there's like every fucking couple of years for a certain period of time, there's a Dracula movie. Like the exact same story. So in the 70s, there was loads of Hammer horror movie Dracula films with Christopher Lee. Some of them were better than others, but most of them weren't great, really. And he had
Blackula.
What's his name? Blackula's fantastic, though. Oh god, I can't. He ended up playing fucking Skeletor in.
Fucking no. The name is not going to come to me, but yeah, it was like a really odd. I was kind of like, he played Skeletor.
Yeah, but it was like nearly every fucking year at one point there was Dracula movies or TV Dracula movies.
Yeah, of course. Showing up in like cartoons and stuff.
Yeah, but like Francis Ford Coppola did a really, really, really good high art kind of thing. I think it won a load of awards for costumes. I think it won an award for music. Annie Lennox did the theme tune for it, which was only used in the end credits. It has the vibe of turn of the century. It's shot like that. There's like that puppet theatre thing there, and as well, like Dracula's a sympathetic character in it, whereas in other things he's just this monster that just seems to want to be a dickhead, like, you know. But in this, you get that he's like, he's Vlad Tepish. And it's a love story. It's a gothic love story. Winona Ryder is brilliant in it as well. But like the people, when they do get killed, and the vampires are really scary. And when Lucy gets turned into the vampire, when she comes back from the dead, and Anthony Hopkins is a brilliant Van Helsing in it, because he's more like a wild man than the way he used to be portrayed by like Peter Cushing as this like, you know, kind of a gentleman. Yeah. Whereas like Anthony Hopkins is just like a bit of a piece of shit, really. But I think it's brilliant. And it's one of these films I don't think is ever going to age because of the way it's shot with it. And Gary Oldman is fucking brilliant in everything.
That's it. I know. Yeah, there's very rare he can't pull off a character, if you know what I mean.
But I think, for me, it's probably the best Dracula movie that's been done. It did so well. Like Kenneth Branagh did the version of Frankenstein, which was like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, with Robert De Niro as Frankenstein, and it was like, not good.
Yeah, that's true. And then didn't like Van Helsing and all that kind of stuff start coming out as well?
Yeah, but that was more the Universal kind of thing. I like Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman in it. But that was because The Mummy did well.
Well, funny you should
because
say
it was
that.
the guy that the Stephen was it? I can't.
Not
no,
Soderbergh.
it would be Stephen Soderbergh. But your man that did The Mummy did the Van Helsing movies, and that kind of finished off for a while.
Well, I was just going to say, one of my honourable mentions is going to be The Mummy. I know it's technically not a horror, it's more action adventure, kind of like Indiana Jones, but The Mummy.
And up on the moon.
Yes, it's right. Oh, honest to God,
that's what you used to say when every now and again I'd shave my head. When I don't because I'd always had short hair, but spiky short hair. And every now and again I'd fuck it up, or someone would fuck it up when they're cutting it for me, and I'd go, I'll just shave it all off and grow back, and then I'd shave it off and I'd go, oh God, why did I shave it off? And you were just saying that I looked like fucking
absolutely you look like your man that did The Mummy. What's his name?
Arnold Vosloo.
Look at you. But yes,
see that I can barely fucking remember my own name at the best of times, and I remember shit like that.
Exactly. But that was a great film though, in fairness.
Oh, it was.
If you could include it in horror, which
Brendan Fraser is great.
Yeah, everyone is great.
Rachel Weisz or something like that?
Rachel Weisz and what's his name? The English guy?
Lexi Sale. Was it Lexi Sale?
What?
I thought
I think no. What's his name?
From
The
Cold
brother.
Feet or something.
I
know.
What was his name? Yeah, but that was like that whole thing again. That kicked off that whole like action adventure kind of genre as well.
Mummy 2 was brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought. But yeah, sure. Give with the Scorpion King.
I was just going to say The Rock was great.
That was I think one of The Rock's first films, and it was just like it was grand.
It was meant to be great, and then the CGI they obviously ran out of money halfway through, and it was just like shit. CGI.
It was terrible. It was like fucking WWE from the 90s on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, pretty bad.
But yeah, that's my number 5, Dracula. What's your number 5?
Dracula. So my number 5 then, funny enough, number 5 is The Sixth Sense.
Oh.
Yes, there we go. I put it down as horror because obviously he sees the people.
Well, it's meant to be horror, yeah.
Yes, exactly, yeah. But again, a lot of these are sort of like they are the jumping off point, as I would see, for sort of like what kind of would spawn a whole slew of imitators and all the rest. Where it's like there's a massive twist at the end.
It brought back the twist. But like I mean, horror's always had twists in it. Like even like Scream, it's a fucking fairly big twist.
Yeah, but this is kind of like all about it's all about the red herons and sort of like seeing if everyone can see it one way, and then suddenly by revealing it, it's like, oh my God, it's flipped at the end, and you've got to go back and rewatch and go, oh my God.
If anyone is wondering what that noise in the background is, it's the cat putting on a gangster accent going meow.
But I mean, Bruce Willis again, that was kind of his comeback as well, because he kind of fallen off the radar a little bit.
Well, he did Pulp Fiction, and then he did a few things, and I think Bruce Willis is a weird one because like he's had a lot of ups and downs.
That's what I mean. But this is like a big like step back into more of a kind of a serious, thoughtful role rather than like the action man, everyday hero kind of role in in his white vest or whatever. So this is kind of like back to Bruce Willis.
And the introduction of Haley Joel Osment. And the first movie from M. Night Shyamalan as well.
That's it, and of course M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. Sorry, that's very disrespectful.
That's why I wasn't going to do that. Everyone does that. I was only looking at something the other night where they were talking about, and they called him Shyamalan Ding Dong, and I was like, what's the fucking guy got to do? Like, how many movies is this man made? And people are just stuck on the whole kind of robot chicken fucking thing.
I know, yeah. But I mean, in fairness, he went on to do something like Signs. There's a lot of very good films.
Signs, I think, is one of my favourite movies. I didn't like Sixth Sense, I have to say. I saw it and I was like, I don't like this. I actually preferred Lady in the Water.
Did you?
Film that he did, I really like that movie. I must go back and watch it because it got hammered at the time, and I was like, I don't understand why people are hammering this. This is fucking really good.
Yeah. Well, I think probably was that people were kind of like looking for the new Sixth Sense, and they were like, oh, it didn't quite as good as Sixth Sense.
He did Unbreakable after the Sixth Sense.
And that was very good as well. Very much enjoyed that. But yeah, I mean, the Sixth Sense, I can remember Like, because I mean, the plot twist was kept very quiet, and I think people were very good at keeping stum for a long time afterwards. And again, like most people, their first time seeing it would have been in the cinema rather than like streaming or whatever. And like people would come out of the cinema going, "Oh my god, I bet you didn't see that."
I see dead people. It's still part of the.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's parodied in so many scary movies. It's parodied in everything basically at this stage, you know. And it is. I think it's one of these films where it is fun to go back and rewatch it and kind of knowing the plot twist and just kind of go, yeah, actually, yeah.
See, that was I looked at it once and I was like, I don't know what the twist is. Sometimes I'm like that with films with twists. It's like,
okay, there's no point watching it. I don't care. Like
it's the tension is gone out of it.
That's it.
With it, it's like sometimes looking at prequels where it's like,
I know what happens.
Why even having them fucking kind of like getting it? It's not like you're kind of sitting there going, oh, I wonder if he dies. It's like, it's fucking, there's like.
That's why you were fucking fun at Titanic, I'd say, were you?
No, but you know, like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It's like with there's no danger. You know he's going to be alright. Like, well, I know you know he's going to be alright. It's not like they're going to kill Indiana Jones off in an Indiana Jones, but they might.
They might do.
But I don't know. It's just some prequels.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, I quite enjoyed this quite a lot, and I think it was again. It's a cultural zeitgeist type film, like you know, cultural touchstone at this stage, and it is. It's like there's very few films nowadays that come out that people will be quoting like 20 years later. Like, I mean, today there's probably kids who haven't even seen fucking The Sixth Sense that are like, oh, I see dead people.
Well, maybe they do see dead people, and then people are like, oh, they're quoting The Sixth Sense.
Like, oh, he's like, please help me.
Yeah.
They won't shut up.
But my number 4, which is a very different movie. I think there are top 4 are going to be very, very, very different movies looking at them. But my number 4 is John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness.
Ah, yes.
Another movie with Sam Neill in it. It's fucking... I don't know how to really... It's about an insurance... investigator.
Oh, sounds thrilling already.
Gets sent off to investigate the disappearance of this horror author called Sutter Kane. And as he descends into things, he starts discovering that it's like maybe the book, his new book, which is they were looking for it to be turned in. The book company, it's driving people mad. But it's like, that doesn't do it. It's a Lovecraft story out now because he basically descends into the world of the book, but your man is writing it and changing the world, and there's like these evil gods, dark gods that are on the edge of time that are tearing a hole in the fabric. It's fucking mental, and it's done really, really well. The special effects are brilliant in it. The monsters in it, the gore in it. And it was part of like Carpenter had the Apocalypse trilogy. But the Apocalypse trilogy, which was The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and this. And this was like the last one, and it's fucking mental. And Sam Neill is brilliant in it.
He seems to be able to hold the old gravitas in these sort of like horror films.
Like, I mean, the rest of the cast, I don't think there might be anyone else that's as famous as Sam Neill in it, but they're all kind of psych. It's just, you do question a lot kind of with it, but it's not like one of these things where it's like a twist or anything like that. It's just a head fuck, but it's like a John Carpenter head fuck. So it's not, not like where you're going to be confused at the end of it. Well, it's just really good. I think it's possibly one of Carpenter's best films. Like, The Thing is definitely his best movie, I think. Halloween will be up there, obviously, as well. But this, like, it's fucking insane. I don't want to talk about it too much in case people haven't, because I do think it's very underrated. A lot of people don't talk about it as much anymore. When it came out at the time, I think people were just kind of like, what the fuck is this? What's going on? You know?
Yes.
And it just seemed to disappear for a long time with it. But yeah, that'd be my number 4. So what would be your number 4?
My number 4, it's kind of weird because for a long time I was very much like too cool for school.
I thought you didn't like this movie
This
at all.
is it. I was always like, oh, fucking it's a pile of shit. I think that was just because
you were being an edgelord.
Yeah, possibly. But I think I was just so sick of it at the time. But looking back, I'm like, wow, that was actually really fucking good. The Blair Witch Project. And it was just a turning point where people started doing things kind of differently. It was like the marketing campaign.
It was the start of found footage movies.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a viral kind of campaign.
It was the first first thing really to utilise the internet.
Yeah. That was it. Kind of,
for,
there was all this, they were spreading rumours, and it was kind of like, oh, is it real? Is it not real? And like, people actually genuinely didn't know going in to see it, because there were so many websites after being set up for it.
For people, because it's probably on some special edition thing, but there's documentaries about well before the film was even fucking announced. Around, like, I remember seeing a documentary on Channel 4 about these people going missing and talking about the Blair Witch. So you did kind of think, oh yeah. And then a couple of months later, then you hear, oh, the Blair Witch movie is coming out, and it's about, like, it's the footage, this found film that was, like, and you're like, I fucking heard about these people going missing.
Yeah, and that's it. And then when you did go off, because when people did have access to the internet, like, for an hour a day or whatever,
if you put their names in, like, it came up about them being missing.
Go to Ask Jeeves or whatever it was at the time, Alta Vista, back in the day. But you start Googling this, Googling, as I say, Ask Jeeves and this, and all of a sudden all these things appear, and there's people talking about it on bulletin boards, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is...
there was like news channels got fooled by it.
Yeah.
And so there were news channels, and like, because they were all, like, they weren't famous people, so like
it was
like well before IMDb or anything like that.
That's it, yeah. And like, I mean, the film itself, I kind of, again, I was a bit like, oh, too cool for school about it. I was like, oh, it's not fucking, that's not scary. But if you genuinely went into it and you were looking at it from the point of view of this is real, this is found footage, it's actually genuinely terrifying, because it starts off like, you know, documentary students going out to like film in the woods, and you know, they're all kind of haha about it. Then it just suddenly turns worse and worse and worse.
It's because you don't really see anything in it. It's not like you see any monsters. It's just very subtle. Like, I mean, seeing like the hanging fucking things from the trees.
The little stick men kind of thing. Yeah, the little kind of way markers or whatever.
And then the end of it, like I think by the time I saw it in the cinema,
you probably knew
it was. I think the jig was up on it.
Yeah.
Because I think it was the first couple of days, then the news started covering, like the new kind of like hit Hollywood movie. So that kind
of took the start of the realism, I suppose. Is it or is it not?
Yeah.
But I mean, it was like, the ending was great as well, because again, like you said, they don't actually show it, and it's your own fucking imagination working overtime.
And as well, they were smart enough with it that it was a 15, so it was open to everyone, really.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but in Ireland, like a 15's, they weren't as strict about letting people. They'd be like, oh, look, if you're 10, go on in.
What do you mean if you're 10? If you're 5,
it's not, you're buying popcorn. It's not, is it? Because like, I think the whole thing was 15s was generally that there'd be no sex in it. There'd be violence in it. This is fucking, I think America is similar to Ireland with it, where it's like, hey, horrendous violence, that's okay.
We can deal with that.
See a nipple, 18s.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, or referencing any kind of riding.
So like, a lot of people, I remember seeing it in the cinema, and I really liked it when I saw it in the cinema, but most of the cinema, just at the very end, all you could hear was, oh, for fuck's sake, what a load of shit, a load of bollocks.
Yeah. I see, that was the way I was, because I was kind of like poo-pooing it a little bit, but again, that was because I was like, it was like those things like, I was a fan of Nirvana before they were big kind of thing. I was being a bit like hipsterish about it.
But I think
looking back on it, is like, it was a huge phenomenon.
It's hard when you're in the moment to kind of realise that something's going to have such a cultural impact and kind of have such an impact on movies, because all of a sudden, the same as fucking zombie movies before, people suddenly went, hey, we can make a fucking movie ourselves with a camcorder.
Yeah, there you go. Just get a camcorder. You can do a shaking call of found footage. You don't have to have a studio.
All that we have to do is show the monster in the last like 2 seconds of that thing, and that's it. And like, I mean, there has been millions of found footage things copied. Now, I quite like Blair Witch Project too, which loads of people hate.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate. And I like the remake of it as well. Adam Wingard did, and I quite like Adam Wingard, so I liked his take on Death Note as well, which is what loads of people are like, oh, that's terrible. And it's like, it's not like the anime or the manga, but it's I thought it was good. I enjoyed it.
But I mean, like, it's it's been parodied and everything, like up as far as The Office, even, like, you know, Michael Scott out in the woods and he's like sniffling.
I think there's meant to be another one coming out. I think there's another sequel coming out at the moment, which it's
I like, again, today, if you had some sort of a scene where somebody is like talking to the camera and they got snot bubbles coming down their nose, they're like, oh yeah, Blair Witch. It's instantly recognised.
It is, they did a good. Now, I didn't put it on my list because I was like, no, I wouldn't look at it again. I looked at it a few times. I don't think I'd ever go back watching it again, unless it was with someone who never saw it.
Yeah, just to see the reaction.
But my number 3 would be Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, or I think it's Dead Alive in other countries. Which that like I mean fucking what was the first one that he did? Oh,
Meet the Feebles.
No, he did Meet the Feebles. It was the very first one that he spent years making, where it was like Bad Taste.
Oh yeah, sorry. Jeez.
Like this is like he had a budget for Brain Dead. It's fucking crazy. It's about a young fella in New Zealand. Well, a young fella in New Zealand, the man who's still living with his mother, and his mother gets bitten by the Sumatran rat monkey. She turns into this monster basically that turns people into zombies, and it's him still trying to look after his overbearing mother as she's turning into this monster. And then the end of it's like goes Reanimator, where it's all the fucking town is full of zombies, and it's him just killing zombies with a lawnmower. And it's just everything Peter Jackson
should have been.
And then Lord of the Rings derailed him. Or, well, actually, no, it would have been, what was that thing that I think he got nominated for an Oscar for? Beautiful Things or something like that. I never saw it, but it was like a serious movie.
And of course, Lord of the Rings, then he became Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson.
I don't think he could ever go off and do another Brain Dead after doing that.
Everyone would be horror. You'd have your mainstream audience to go and see it because they're thinking, oh, more Lord of the Rings.
And The Frighteners, I don't think was... I don't like The Frighteners. I think it's a bit boring. Whereas I think Brain Dead, it's so gory and it's so funny. And the where he has it's fucking like a baby zombie. And he brings it out. And it's just fucking, and the priest in it, I kick ass for the Lord. Where it's like the priest is like a ninja. It's just insane. Stuff. So that's my number 3.
Yes, very good. And I was sure you'd have it on your list.
I could talk. I haven't looked at it in a long time. We wanted to look at a lot of these films this week, but like you can't get the time to watch everything. So like some of my memories about it are
they might be a little bit
but I think for the 90s it is for a long time, and it was a very underground movie as well, because like it was. You wouldn't hear people that were like, say, even normal horror fans talking about it. It was always kind of like, oh, hey, have you seen? It was very
it was
underground.
very hard to get as well, as far as
it's near impossible to get, but it was just very funny and very, very gory, over the fucking top. Evil Dead 2 levels of gore.
It was like if Evil Dead met Flight of the Conchords. I think. That's basically that kind of weird.
That's a very good description. But what's your number 3?
So my number 3 might be no surprise to you is Ringu.
Oh, yes.
Yes, indeed. Because I can remember watching that film with you for the first time, and I stepped out to go to the loo and came back down the stairs and shot myself because somebody had taken the phone off the hook, and all I could hear was the dial tone out in the hallway. And then you jumped out of the darkness at me. So I was proper terrified watching that fucking film. But no, I thought it was excellent. Like, I mean, it was, we weren't, I don't think most of Ireland was used to watching like Japanese films.
No, I don't think like most of the world outside of Japan were used to. It was like, I mean, people had seen kind of like fucking, there was plenty of obviously Japanese movies.
Yeah, of course.
Before, but
Rashomon
it was
whatever,
all of a sudden like the Western world was like, oh my god, Japanese horror movies.
They were woken up to like J horror and such, and like, I mean, it was the likes of Channel 4, and it was the likes of maybe Chartbusters, the world movie section.
Yeah, it was Tartan Videos. It started importing a lot of the
so
the
they became a lot more
movies,
accessible to like people like ourselves in rural Ireland. They go into a Chartbusters and have access to like I don't know, fucking African film or something like that, or a J horror. And from there, I think like, I mean, people suddenly, as you said, woke up to like, Jesus, the Japanese are doing some fucking scary shit with their horror, and led to a load of Western remakes which weren't as good as the original.
No, God, no. The Western remakes were terrible. That was like, I think the 2000s was an era of remakes of classic 70s movies and Japanese
J-horror,
popular Japanese horror movies, because they thought, oh, well, Western audiences won't look at a movie with subtitles. So we may as well just remake the whole fucking thing and do a shit job of it.
That's it.
Where it's like the first Ring, well, actually, all the Ring movies are really good. They get weirder. The first one is kind of that fucking kind of like investigation thing, looking into where it is. It's about the videotape, people dying from the videotape after 7 days, and
finding out what happened to Sasako.
But it was like it all comes from your man kind of like being told, right, you've only got 7 days left to live, and he goes like looking into it. So that has been copied a lot with different movies over the years, like an awful lot. Like that Smile movie. That has the same thing where it's like
same kind of premise,
yeah,
that's it.
But like Ringu just did it so well, and like Sadako when she does come out of the,
it is, and again that's something as well that has been copied and copied and copied, and again I seem to be using the word a whole lot, but it's just entered like fucking cultural, sort of zeitgeist again, where it's like, this girl with like long black hair comes crawling out of fucking telly at you,
and the creepy video as well.
Yeah,
but like the whole thing as well with Sadako's characters, because at first when you start hearing about it, you're like, oh my god, that poor girl and stuff, so you think, oh, this is just her trying to like other ghost stories where it's like someone tried to help her or kind of get rid of her bones, and like spoilers, they fucking find her bones and it does fuck all. It just turns out that she just likes to kill. Why they put her down in the well was because she was very dangerous. I can't remember if it was like she was an experiment or that she was just born that way with the powers, because like it's the prequel to it about all that stuff. I can't remember, we saw it like fucking years ago. But Ring 2 is really good as well.
All of the rings in general, and even the westernized ones aren't so bad. They're okay. They're tolerable for what
there were
they
some interesting scenes, and the one with the horse on the ferry was kind of cool, and the forest, but still they weren't like they're not a patch on them.
No, not at all. And of course, like, I mean, it was just at the very end of the 90s heading into 2000s, you had the likes of that Audition, all of those kind of films were coming up as well, so that kind of
people were more open-minded. I think people were sick of some of the western things, so it was time for a Japanese, which has happened throughout history. It's happening now with comics. I think it happened like years ago with art as well, when people discovered Japanese wood prints through the newspaper kind of the packaging and things, and they were like, oh my god, this is like nicer than the shit that we have over here.
Yes, indeed.
Well, my number 2 would be Fallen.
Okay.
Which it'd be, I don't know if it's not a film that's widely regarded either. I love it. I think it's my number 2 film from the 90s and horror movies. It stars Denzel Washington as a police investigator who's looking into, it starts off with a serial killer that they hunted down and killed in the gas chamber. It looks like someone's doing copycat killings. As it turns out, and it's not spoiling it for anyone, that it's a demon that's been around since before history. That's like jumping from bodies, killing people, and it's after targeting Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington, as usual, is fucking brilliant in it. Denzel Washington, I think a lot of people kind of, because he's done some like really, really big movies like Malcolm X and kind of Glory and stuff, but he is great in action films like Man on Fire and this. He is fucking brilliant in this. The story to this, I don't want to give away the ending to it, it's a big twist. It's a fucking big twist with the narration. It's incredibly dark. John Goodman is in it as well. It's just a bleak fucking movie. But it's done it came out probably after 7.
Right, so I was in that kind of.
But I don't think it was influenced by 7 in any shape or form. This is just a very, very smart movie. And it's nearly better the second time you watch it, because you know what's going on with it, because there's a lot of stuff you don't know
you miss out
until the very end, and then you're like, oh fuck that.
So a bit like The Sixth Sense then.
Way better. Because then you kind of look at it from the very start and go, fucking hell, that's what this is. And that
suddenly everything links up and makes sense.
But it's not done in that kind of, they do it like the Saw. Saw was one of the first ones to do it, where they start doing the thing with the music. It's not done like a load of movies just copy that now, just because I think like, all right, the audience is ticked, like we have to show it to them, kind of like, oh look, this is how the film actually ties together. Fallen, great film. I'd love to talk about it more. Might do an episode about it at some stage,
we'll watch it
but
again.
we can't. I don't want to, in case people haven't seen it, to spoil it. It's fucking brilliant.
Well then, people can just not listen to it.
No. I'm not going to spoil it. No,
not now. But if we do an episode on it, you'll have to talk about it a bit
and
more,
as well,
surely.
because it's so probably not as well known as like the Blair Witch Project, or we can't really talk about it. But what's your number 2 then?
Number 2 is Misery. Because I have to
Because he loves the misery.
Yeah. Maybe I like the misery. I have to have a Stephen King one in there somewhere, really, I suppose. And I mean, this whole film is just, again, it's just memorable with the whole breaking the ankles. You know, it's just, some of it is so horrific. Kathy Bates is fantastic, and it's just ridiculous, like, do you know what I mean? And it is, again, it's sort of this whole thing of like,
is it scary though?
It's horror. It's not scary horror. It's psychological horror, I think. And it's kind of like, oh my God, fucking this like mental fan. Again, it's Stephen King writing himself into the story. It's like a writer basically careens off the road in heavy snow, and his biggest fan, luckily enough, lives out in the wilderness and picks him up and brings him back, and she's going to nurse him back to health. But she's also going to imprison him because she wants him to continue writing a character that he had decided to kill off. And she is just horrifying and terrifying, and it's this whole psychological thing of like, my God, is she going to end up killing him or what?
It's the dark side of fandom.
Yes, exactly. It's scary.
This is what happens before the internet. Exactly, so maybe the internet ain't such a bad thing. Get people just like shit on things online instead of like
exactly, or they can join their own fandom groups, or they can all make up their own sort of like
fanfic.
This is canon.
And then Sam Kistine, and
this is my head canon, and you can't tell me otherwise. So people can go up and they can, I suppose it's a bit like the whole Star Trek thing where fans started writing stories and all the rest for it.
Well, that was the start of fanfic, wasn't it? Or slash fic. Maybe not fanfic. I'm sure fanfic was from, but slash fic.
Have I got the right Bates, by the way?
Kathy Bates. Yeah.
Because I keep mixing her up with
Norman.
Yes. No, with whatchamacallit? Oh Jesus.
Fred Astaire.
No, Perry and
oh yeah. I don't know her name.
Anyway, never mind. But Misery, because as I said, you have to have a Stephen King one in there somewhere, and this one I think it's very suspenseful, and like, I mean, there's a couple of the scenes like, you know, where you're genuinely sweating her. He's trying to like get back, you know, sort of before she gets the car up the road and she realises he's after escaping his locked room, and it's very fucking tense.
See, my thing with it as well, where I like Misery, but I wouldn't include it. I'm not saying that about you including it in the top 10, because like for a lot of people it's the best movie ever. But for me, it's kind of like The Sixth Sense insofar as after I looked at once,
you're not going to look at it again.
I just didn't have any. Yeah. Because you know, I don't know, the tension is kind of gone out of it with those kind of thrillers sometimes, where it's
true enough.
Where sometimes like the dumb movies are better because you can keep watching them over and over.
Yeah, exactly. They're popcorn movies, I suppose. Really, very good. So, what's your number one?
My number one would be The Exorcist 3. I think it's the best out of all the Exorcist movies. It's like there'd be some controversy around it because it was directed by Peter Blatty, who wrote The Exorcist, and The Exorcist Legion was the book that this was based on. And he didn't want to do the ending of it, but they were like, you have to throw an exorcism in because it's an Exorcist movie. And he's like, fucking hell. So they did it. He wasn't happy with it for years. There was a director's cut which doesn't have any of the exorcism stuff in it or anything like that. But he even admitted himself, afterwards he said, I think it's actually better with The Exorcist, even though it just happens. So like the story with The Exorcist 3 is these killings are happening which seem to be linked somehow to the exorcism from The Exorcist 1 with Regan McNeil. And the cop from the first Exorcist movie is kind of caught in the middle of it, investigating these murders. It's very like Seven, I think, but I don't know. It's kind of an old man movie. It's fucking really weird because to me it reminds me, there's some great banter in it. Like I was saying to you, there's fucking great characterization. There's one bit with a doctor where he wants to talk to the cop, and they show him beforehand practicing what he's going to say. And all of a sudden it just opens up everything about it, and it hints at stuff that happens later on with what's in the doctor's room. And I'm fucking convinced I was only, I think on his ring it was like a golden dawn ring, or kind of like
but even the kind of
seal.
What he had framed up on the wall and all the rest behind him was sort of, you know, it gave a real insight into his character, like, you know.
But it's just fucking written so well, and it's funny. Like
it's a very sort of, it's almost like sort of a Columbo type banter, isn't it?
It's a buddy cop movie. Kind of thing? I think it's a buddy cop movie at its core, set in the Exorcist universe, but that's trying to tie stuff from the first out, but kind of like add more onto it, kind of. So instead of like, and as well, because I don't think this is a very widely watched movie as well, I don't want to give spoilers to it, but it adds to the, instead of one person being possessed, It's like maybe everyone's possessed. It's just done very well, and it closes off the Exorcist story, I think, really, really well.
Yeah.
One of my favourite films of all time.
Really?
Yeah. I love it. I really, really love it. George C. Scott is fucking amazing in it. And as well, because it is a thing, when it came out in the 90s, it was all teenagers and all that. And then you have a bunch of fucking old people.
Yeah, they're not like sort of the handsome young stars or anything like that.
Yeah.
They are the old weathered character actors.
That are very
that have
capable.
seen shit.
Yeah, because it's like, right, they're dealing with this... And you don't know for a long time. You kind of know that there's some evil kind of shit going on.
Yeah, but it isn't 100% clear what it is.
Yeah, but the imagery in it is fantastic. There's some kind of like blink and you'll miss it bits where it's like really, really scary kind of thing. Like there's one bit where like a head gets cut off a statue of Jesus. In a fucking really, really quick shot, and it's been replaced by like a demonic head like the Joker. Out of the comics, out of the 70s comics and the 80s comics of Batman. And it's just it's
like
just
a subliminal flash kind of thing. Yeah,
you kind of go, there's just it's the right level of
unsettling.
creepy. It's really good, kind of like, obviously.
Yes, indeed,
I like Exorcist.
Yeah,
too.
it is good. Yes, very good.
So you're number one, which I know what it is.
Yes, it's Candyman.
Yeah.
Candyman. Yes, exactly. And I don't know what it is about it, because it wouldn't be necessarily a typical film I would have gone to back then. But I remember seeing it, and it was just something about it. I was kind of like, oh my god, this
Well,
is
it influenced you with your thesis, didn't it?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Like, I mean, obviously it's sort of like an urban legend, I suppose, kind of crossed over with reality. And it kind of, they go back and it's horrendous and horrific when you see sort of the historical background and, kind of harken back to fucking slave days and stuff.
What was the name of the place again?
Cabrini Green.
Cabrini Green. There was something with Cabrini Green that we saw a while ago.
That's I can't remember what the link was.
Then we kind of found out like the actual history, because I didn't realise that it was a real fucking place.
In the projects, basically, But so I mean, it's just, you have this sort of like this white woman coming into the black projects, kind of doing her little investigation and all the rest, and then she just gets sucked into this whole horrific urban legend world that isn't quite urban legend.
Virginia Madsen.
They're living this reality kind of a thing, and it's this real thing that happened, and again, as I said,
it's a dark, I think we always said it was a dark fairy tale. Clive Barker.
Yeah, and it's so sinister, and it's played with such gravitas by Tony Todd, yeah. Like he's had a horrific, his character has had the horrific death in the past, horrific torture, and then now he's this tragic
monster.
Yes, horrendous demon himself, kind of thing. But he just carries himself with this almost regal kind of, he's just,
That's it. He wasn't like,
I'm coming to get you.
Yes. I'm the leprechaun.
Exactly. But no, he was just very sinister and very creepy with it.
And you kind of, he's seductive.
I suppose.
That's the whole thing where you kind of look at him and you kind of go, he can't be a bad guy. He's not a monster.
That's
and then
true.
it's like, there's bees coming out of his asshole.
So he's got a hook for a hand.
Yeah.
It's more hook hand people, yes, indeed. But it did. It had that much of an impact on me, I suppose, that I did end up, my old thesis for my stint in film school ended up being about myths and mythologies and urban legend and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And you tried to make up one yourself. Instead of the Candyman, it was the Irish version, the Sweetie Man. Or the Refresher Boy.
The Dan Bar Man. The fruit salad.
But Candyman, I had Candyman in the list as well. Laura said, leave it off.
Yeah, that's going to be my number one. But it is, everything about it is so, like, I mean, they've got, like, the young kids coming over, and it's like, everything is just, it's got this air of like, creepy, like, do you know what I mean?
The remake was quite good as well, actually. And it's not really a remake, it's a sequel.
Yes, exactly. But even like the artwork on the walls of all the sort of the broken down old buildings, there's so much time and effort and care put into them, and they're genuine.
It feels real. It does feel real. It feels like a found footage movie, but not a found. In parts when they're going, or documentary, when they're going down. Virginia Madsen was brilliant. Like Virginia Madsen, I presume she's still acting, like, but she was like in a lot of really, really cool. Like one of the, I just throw it in because I forget about it. One of like honourable mentions to The Prophecy, which had Christopher Walken in it, and Eric Stoltz and Elias Cotes. who's also in Fallen. A brilliant movie about angels and demons. Probably I have no fucking shadow of a doubt it influenced Eric Kripke with Supernatural. First one is great. Second and third one, just fucking forget about them. First one was really, but she was brilliant in that.
Yeah.
As well. She did like a lot of unusual movies.
She did, yeah, that's it. And she was very kind of not relatable, kind of.
She looked like a normal fucking person. Like she acted like normal, but she's very grounded.
Yeah, and reacted like a normal person would as well when faced with stuff like that.
But I think Candyman, very good pick for normal one. So that's our top 10s. So I suppose quick honourable mentions. I'll just give a run through some of mine. Whether these, a lot of these could have made it on. The Resurrected, which is a H.P. Lovecraft thing. Very good. Jacob's Ladder.
Yes, I did enjoy that. Actually,
it's a great film with what's her face's husband.
That's terrible. Meryl Streep's husband.
No, not Meryl Streep. What's her from Thelma and Louise?
Oh, sorry, no, yeah, I'm getting there. It's Tim Robbins, isn't it?
Yeah, Tim Robbins.
And it's Thelma and Louise. No, not Gina Davis, the other one.
But anyway,
never mind.
Jacob's Ladder, they did a remake. I don't know if the remake is any good or not. Probably not. But it's basically about someone suffering from PTSD, but demons as well. Hardware, brilliant fucking English movie. Kind of 2000 AD, if anyone's read 2000 AD, kind of thing with the ABC Warriors, where a guy finds the head of a robot in the desert and gives it to his artist girlfriend to make, and it activates, and it's like a death bot that just wants to kill everyone. It's fucking brilliant. Seven, I think, is more of a thriller than a horror movie.
You can't really call it a horror. I suppose.
Wishmaster was like the continuation, I think, of 80s kind of. They were trying to do a Freddy or a Jason with it. They wanted to have a horror icon thing. First one is very good, but the rest of the sequels are kind of a bit crap, but it never really took off for some reason. I think they tried bringing it back and it didn't do well. The Habit as well, vampire movie.
Okay. Not sure.
The Craft, I think, for teenagers, and like there is the sequel to it as well now. But The Craft was really good, just a fun movie as well. Blair Witch but it's a TV show technically with Tim Curry, brilliant, way better than the.
Oh God, Tim Curry is the definitive It, I think.
Yeah, I think with the movie, the first part with a new movie was good. Second part when they're adults was done.
Yeah,
a bit
kind of
shit.
Janky.
Dusk Till Dawn is there, Ring, Vampires Night, Fire in the Sky, an alien thing, based on maybe a true story about Travis Walton who got abducted by aliens. And it's not so much scary for most of the film when they're dealing with the thing, because they're trying to do it as like a serious movie, but when he starts having flashbacks about being abducted by the aliens, it's like, oh fuck.
I wouldn't have put it down as horror though. It would have been more
reality. I know. The Warlock movies, Warlock Armageddon, the second one I think is really, really good. It's just gory, full of clips. Mario Van Peebles werewolf movie. It's just fucking and a New Nightmare, and that's my honourable mentions.
Well, we already went through some of mine. The Mummy, Lawnmower Man, Star of Echoes.
Oh yeah. Kevin Bacon. You had that on video.
I think so. But I did quite enjoy that at the time. All right. So yes, there we go. My honourable mentions.
So look, I think it's a thing from, if you listen for the whole thing, I think we've kind of proven that. Like, I mean, the 90s wasn't terrible for horror movies.
Some very good. And
I do think the 2000s probably were. Looking ahead, I do.
I don't know. There'd be a few gems in there that would be in your top films ever. There
will still be good films. There's good films every decade. I think but I do think the 2000s was probably a bit of a low for original horror movies.
Yeah, well, of course, everyone thinks like the 90s was low. I mean, like some of these, that's what I'm saying. Fucking like cultural touchstone, but it is like. I mean,
but that's the 90s was good for horror. The 90s was good for establishing horror in the mainstream. I think in the 80s, a lot of it was VHS stuff.
Yeah, straight to video. That kind of stuff,
that ended up becoming, that was time for cult classics that ended up becoming much beloved. Whereas in the 90s, I think it's because more people had videos, and then there's like the birth of DVDs as well in the 90s. They
used to have special effects features as well, which are always great for all.
But it's why you had stuff like Sky Movies over here, HBO box office over in America. You know, that a lot of more kind of like movies were shown quicker after they were in the cinema. So I suppose, look, thank you for listening. And let us know what your, if you've listened the whole way through, let us know what your favourite movies from the 90s were. If you haven't listened the whole way through and you just skip to this part just so you can get permission to... No, don't. But yeah, look, come back next week. We'll be talking about the 2000s, see what our top 10
Candyman
ones are. Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh.
How many times have I said it now?
I don't know, there's no fucking mirror around though. But yeah, look, until next week, arrivederci.